April 28th, Sunday morning, 2019. My son was sick, and he had struggled for about a week with a fever. I had taken him to his pediatrician's office 3 times that week, and she mentioned that it was viral, that his body just had to cycle through it. After rotating Motrin and Tylenol over the course of that week and 3 visits to the pediatrician, by Sunday morning he was exhausted, and as I went to lift him out of bed, his arms were limp, his legs were limp, his head fell back as I lifted him in my arms. He was 3 years old at the time. As his eyes rolled back in his head, I brought him into the living room. I knelt on the floor, and with tears rolling down my eyes, I called 911 for help. The ambulance arrived. As a matter of fact, 2 ambulances arrived, which I thought was quite odd, but I was thankful nonetheless. As one of the paramedics came in, she mentioned that it was unusual that both paramedics had arrived, that typically that's not what happens, but she introduced herself and said that she was the supervisor or the captain, and she would be taking care of my son. So she sent the other ambulance away. As we loaded into the back of the ambulance, we later came to discover that he was having febrile seizures. She noted in the back of the ambulance that his oxygen was low, so she also provided an oxygen mask. My mother decided to follow behind the ambulance in her personal vehicle as we went to the local hospital that does have a children pediatric unit for care. As we arrive in the ambulance bay of this particular community hospital, as our driver gets out to open the door to let us out of the back, as he begins to walk to the back to let us out, mind you, there's the driver, and then the captain is in the back with me and my son. As the driver gets out to let us out of the back, I realize that someone is yelling in the ambulance bay. At the time, I worked at a separate hospital's ED, and I knew that it was unusual for someone to be actively yelling in the ambulance bay. So at this hospital, which was not the hospital I was working at the time, as the driver opened the door to let us out the back and I heard someone yelling, I thought to myself, who is yelling in an ambulance bay? Within seconds, a man jumped into the driver's seat of the ambulance and began to drive off with me, my son, and the paramedic captain, female, who was still in the back with us. And he began to drive off with us. I immediately stretched out my arms and laid my body flat over my son as he's still in the bed, the ambulance bed, seizing in the back of the ambulance. I am very thankful for the paramedic who was in the back with us. As she immediately knew what to do, she immediately sprung into action and got on the mic. There's this, I don't know if it's a radio, however, she got on immediately and indicated to law enforcement that an individual had jumped in the driver's seat and was driving off with us. As we were in the back, bumping around, medicines flying everywhere from my purse, but I laid over my son and I lifted my head a couple of times and said to the driver, "Sir, if you pull over, we will jump out of the back and then you can keep going. My son is seizing. Can you pull over and let us jump out of the back?" He said nothing. He didn't turn around. He didn't interact. He just kept driving. Sooner than later, we heard sirens and officers and loud noises. Apparently, officers had, of course, taken notice of the call from the captain, paramedic, and immediately jumped into action. Immediately closed off roads exits, entrances. I mean, completely shut everything down. And at times, my son would become more alert, and he would start screaming in the back of that ambulance and crying and screaming and screaming and screaming. The officers eventually got us the vehicle to a stopping point, and then they were yelling so loudly. I don't think I've ever heard yelling this loud ever in my life. It actually can be very startling, but it was obviously for good reason. And they were saying, "Get out of the car, let me see your hands," things of this nature. And the driver, who had driven off with us, was not at all listening. He was just sitting there. Even though we had come to a stop now at this point, he was just sitting there. And so I was so nervous now at this point, not just for our own safety, but I'm thinking, okay, this man is not seeming as though he's going to comply. Eventually, he did open the door, put both hands up, and started to comply with the officer's demands. As the officers prepared to get us out of the back, the paramedic, the captain, she said to me, "They're going to get us out of the back, and they're going to get us back to the hospital. They're going to get us inside the hospital." The interesting thing was that even in all this chaos, that particular captain, she was still so focused on my son's well-being and his care. Because his oxygen sats had been low, because he had appeared to have been seizing. She instructed me, because I had my son by that time, I was holding him to getting ready to unbuckle him to get him out. And she said, "When they get us out of the back, you follow the officers, and I'm going to carry your son." Now, my first thought is, nobody's carrying my son. I'm carrying my son. However, based on I believe her training and her concern for his still current medical condition, it is amazing to me that through all of that chaos and on the spot, unexpected circumstances, she was still so hyper-focused on paying attention to my son, his well-being. And so I finally said to her, "Okay." And I'm highly inspired by that quality that she has. As we got out, the officers eventually got us out. They did. We were running. They were like, "Run." We were running. They got us inside the hospital, and she did carry my 3-year-old son across that area, still looking at him, attending to him. I remember as we entered the ED doors, she was delivering, just flawlessly delivering his information, his age, his symptoms, even though she too had just been through this trauma. And I will never forget that as long as I live. Just taking a side note, if I could ever find her, I would want to thank her. I would want to bring my son, and I would love to thank her, because even in the midst of trauma ensuing, chaos ensuing, she was at a state of excellence, beyond excellence. Continue on. My mother had driven behind us in her car, and naturally she saw an aspect of the incident that I had not seen. That aspect was, she later said, as you all were pulling into the ambulance bay, a man came out and was tussling with 2 guards. And he was yelling and tussling with them, and they just could not hold him, and he got loose from them. Already outside, he got loose from them and jumped in and drove off with you all. Of course, which made my mother frantic, and she said she called my dad immediately, so on and so forth. So fast forward to us being in the hospital. There were so many people, so many fast movements around myself and my son. people wanted me to sign things, and I just remember it felt like my head was spinning, but I was just holding tightly at that point onto my son. So this is part 1. We will continue with part 2 momentarily.
When you stop the noise and listen